Hello and welcome back again to Rage Gaming and more Wilds talk. To our surprise, the Wilds news continued this week after Gamescom already wrapped up. We had 3 incredible days of dev streams at that, alongside interviews and tons of press and creator videos and reveals coming out of that, loads of new information. I was actually there, I got to play it and share some of that too. But now, the team has moved over to the USA side of things at the recent PAX event. There, members of the team, including Ryozo, opened up a new booth for event goers to try the game, but completely different to Gamescom. Instead of running gameplay-based live streams, had a full-on panel for various Capcom titles. The panel was over an hour long, but during that they talked about Monster Hunter Wilds, though, hilariously, the Wild section was probably the biggest part. It was the opener and over half the panel, with a whole hunt to look at and some new information to consider. So we're obviously going to talk about it all and see what new details we can learn or add to from the stuff that we have seen before. So let's get into it. The panel opened up with a quick chat and some proper gameplay showcased by community manager Joe Bustos. This was alongside Ryozo himself and their great interpreter for the talk. Ryozo expressed some good interest to being back at PAX. It's been a long time for him. He's very excited to see how people react and how they feel to the game, and I think that goes beyond just what he says here or what you normally hear about this. I've heard stories from other creators how they were just standing next to the line talking to people, or just happily watching all of the popularity of the people playing the game, or just interested in the dev stream. Obviously they were there doing interviews, talking with press happily, and doing the dev live streams where they're playing themselves. It's just something that I like to acknowledge, that these devs and these creators of this series, they really play the game, they really know about it, and that's not always the case for people working in the industry. So it's just nice to see. Anyway, we have this slide with different information about the game, standard features we do know, but just a reminder that the game is coming in 2025 for PlayStation 5, Xbox, and Steam. And during this little chat, Ryozo comments that they really focused this time with Wilds to create 2 distinct feelings for the game. The dangerous, predator-style monsters to hunt, the gameplay we're all looking forward to, but also the other side of things, the peaceful, living world of Monster Hunter beyond just that hunting, which, you know, I felt was missing somewhat in Rise, certainly compared to World. There's so many examples that I could talk about, say in the footage we're going to look at today, but also in my experience playing it myself. One main new mechanic we're seeing is the whole herds and packs and alphas stuff. Ryozo during this explained that the packs move in careful, considerate ways, not just of you, but the others of the pack too. Like a pack of wolves will distract you, while another goes in from the bite from behind, kind of trying to overwhelm you. The doshaguma don't quite work like wolves, but they do work in intelligent ways. I felt in my gameplay that the non-alphas would intentionally get in the way during times of weakness of the alpha, blocking my line of sight, for example. But obviously there's other stuff like the endemic life we'll talk about later on in this, but alongside original endemic life effects and interactions we can do, there's loads of new ones, like say the new crocodiles you can steal the teeth from to then use for the new bleed pods. Small monsters actually attack large monsters during hunts, and that happens here in this footage. The doshaguma gets knocked down, and then a pack of small monsters just rolls in to take advantage of it, seeing that kind of moment of weakness. This is really nice because they're not just harassing and annoying you now. I think a lot of people are going to really appreciate going back to that feeling of a living, breathing world with all these little details to make it feel like, you know, these creatures actually live here and this is actually a functional world. Alongside that, we have the topic of weather. Importantly, the weather is going to affect monsters in how they fight, their abilities, and the experience during the hunt. In my experience, I mistakenly thought Ray was the eye and cause of the storm, the sand tide, and that there would be no storm without Ray. But during this panel, Ryozo does confirm that the apex monsters of the locale that you're actually in, they tend to appear during those special weather events. So Ray will appear with this sand tide storm, but he's not like he's exactly the source of it and he has to be in it at all times. The storm is a physical location in the locale, the area that it occurs, but then it moves around, meaning you can indeed run away from it or choose to enter it, that kind of thing. So the technology involved in creating a massive weather system like this has clearly been a big undertaking. In terms of the weather, they've made sure that it affects the hunts. Even the monsters will be affected by it in negative ways too. That's shown later in this footage when a doshaguma is randomly struck by lightning, dealing exactly 115 damage, which is no joke, that's solid damage. I'm pretty lucky in that example. But you can also really see how in this locale, the weather changes the colors of the game. The sun tide will make everything very dark with a strong shade of deep blue, but as the sun tide moves off from the hunter here, everything suddenly becomes so bright and sunny and colorful again, and it's just this, it's a very visually pleasing change. The next topic is about the Palico, who is fully voiced now if you didn't know, kinda similar to what we've seen in the Stories games. I experienced that myself, and it did surprise me when I was playing. I didn't even realize it was the Palico talking. I pulled out a portable cooking pot and it was talking to me, and I thought it was the handler, who does also join you. She's called Alma. Both of these give you helpful callouts during the hunts, if that's in combat or not. But don't worry, as confirmed in this panel now by Ryozo, you can turn off the whole voiced Palico thing and have it go back to classic meowing and all that for those that really want it. Next, they do reference some characters like Alma the handler here, Nata the mysterious child who's tied to the story, there's Olivia the veteran hunter, and then the guildsmithy Gemma. Ryozo mentioned that they're very aware of how suddenly popular she became, but then did say, you know, the other characters are really cool and you're probably going to like them too, but I think people just really like her design. Then we have the 14 weapons referenced and shown in this awesome image, showing them all at once. These are the armor and weapon sets we saw in the 14 different weapon trailers in the build up to Gamescom, which is just cool to look at and highlights the variety in this game. Imagine having to balance and managing 14 weapons every new game. It's gotta be hard. Obviously though, in Wilds we can now take 2 weapons on every hunt, and Ryozo once again was asked which weapons he'll take, and he once again told us that he'll be using a hammer, and then another hammer. Truly the people's champion. Alright, so now we really jump into the footage of the gameplay. This was captured at PAX, and it is indeed Joe's gameplay. It opens with a familiar section though, the base camp that has you leave by riding the Seikret right out there. In my experience, the Seikret runs forward and sort of automatically crosses complex terrain like this, to hop and jump across and land. But what's interesting here to me is that it actually glides, and that's been a big topic between creators. Every time I ran out the camp, the Seikret sort of ran down a ramp and made a small hop down, the wings not used at all. So I talked to other creators at the event about that, only to find that no one seemed to use the glide or even knew how. And here it is, happening in this PAX footage. The keybinds at the top right show you what you can do during normal movement, but if you slow it down, you can catch that brief moment where when the Seikret jumps up into the air, you have one button available, and that's glide by pressing R2. So yeah, there it is. You can glide on the Seikret immediately by just pressing R2 whenever you're mid-air. It is that simple, and yet I and many other people seem to completely miss it. Not a massive reveal, but one I'm glad to know. Next, we get a look at some pop-up camps. As explained, we can place these in preset locations with a reasonable range to place them down. As we do know, you need to be careful when you're doing that, since monsters can destroy them if you draw them into the camp. There's a limited amount of pop-up camps you can place at any locale too as another limiter, but here, of course, like a tent, you can swap gear and all the usual stuff, and we see some new cooking shown too. You can choose between the main, the additional ingredients, and the finishing touches. The 3 categories give you different bonuses, like the meat in this case gives us attack up, the mushroom gives us the black belt meal skill, and honey provides the medic meal skill here. That's alongside standard stuff like health, stamina, the duration of the meal, and elemental resistance, based of course on what you're eating. I like the new system, it feels pretty intuitive. Moving on though, we see the hunter then equip the ghillie mantle, so this confirms that mantles are back, but we don't know what mantles, because all we had in our own session in this footage is the ghillie. We see lots of hunters making use of it in different footage though. It makes you very stealthy, meaning we can sneak up on monsters super easy for the new sneak attack mechanic that all weapons have. With it on, you can just run up to the monster and it has no idea you're there instead of crouching around, but in this case the hunter throws a barrel bomb to start the hunt. If you weren't aware, these can also be picked up if you do misplace them, or you can choose to throw them to roll at a target like so. After a brief engage then, we see the hunter use a lure pod on the alpha, trying to lure it away from the pack. You can see it's working by the red line that points at the monster being affected by the lure, but in this footage you'll see multiple red lines because it seems to be affecting more than just the alpha. I guess the hunter here accidentally hit a normal guma at the same time, so we see multiple lines pointing because of that, just a cool little detail. Next we see the hunter lure doshaguma into Ray Dao for a brief encounter. And Ryozo during this moment talks about the flagship of Wilds. Instead of revealing any new information about it though, he instead confirmed what we all somewhat knew, that Ray Dao is confirmed not necessarily to be the flagship of the game if there was any doubt before now. Like I said, we pretty much knew that, but now we have this direct quote and clip to confirm it. That does remind us though, what is the flagship for Wilds? It's weird we don't know. Ryozo then dropped this line, there's a different flagship monster, so keep an eye out for further information. There's lots of fan theories that this time we might even have multiple like generations. What if apex monsters of each locale, the big bads in each place, those are the flagships of the game, another multi-one? The line he said that there's a different flagship monster, you could take that either way, that yeah, there's multiple and Ray is one of them, or the real flagship is just not shown yet, so we'll have to wait and see. Now, not long after that, we see a trap being placed to hold the monster down as normal. This one is a shock trap and is placed by your Palico mid-fight. Normally we choose personalities and prep based on what we want, like Trapper in this example. But in Wilds, it does seem the Palico kind of does it all, trying to do what will help you most in that moment, healing, traps, utility, and so on. So that system may be gone and now the Palico just does it all. We'll see on that one. But bonus detail, it does seem in Wilds that if we place a trap down and place it wrong, you can pick it up and move it. That's something I've heard anyway. And it does make sense to me since we can also do that with the new barrel bombs. Okay, so here's a fun detail. Ryozo during the fight just drops this nice information about hills and sliding. He confirms that sliding is back and in fact still in the game. All you need is a hill style location to slide down to then follow into slide attacks that are still here in Wilds. I didn't get to try that myself and I've also not seen footage of it, but maybe that could lead us into new details with the weapons. If any have new slide attacks or follow-ups from that, we have no idea. But you know, the game is quite vertical with the 3D map that we've seen that showcases that, so there should be lots of cases where we can do these slide attacks, at least in the normal environment. The hunt does end in a fun way though, ending how it started with a barrel bomb to the face, and a fun showing of the hitboxes of dead monsters which can now be climbed on, letting you carve them from up high. The overlay of the quest finishing happens, you get the usual info and drops and all that good stuff, but it doesn't pause the game fully anymore. You can skip the 60-second timer, which can also be done in multiplayer by the way, and then we continue to roam around the world if we want, opening up the map to activate new quests or going to hit a specific monster to do the same, or maybe a board system in the camp to my understanding. But yeah, you can just keep going. Like we see here, where at the end of this gameplay, we get a super important reveal of a topic. This familiar friend is shown. The strange little bird that everyone was losing their minds over, because it looks like a little baby pukei. They obviously saw the big reaction and wanted to highlight that. As it turns out, this bird is in fact a new endemic life. It's called the amstrigian, and they gave us some info about it, like how it's usually found in the scarlet forest, but they do migrate here to the windward plains at certain times of the year for breeding and such. I'm sure some people will be disappointed that it's not actually a baby pukei, but there was such a big reaction to this guy that they wanted to talk about it. They did show lots of memes and really cute art. They told us that if you stop and watch them, you can see different behaviors about them, like hunting grasshoppers or hanging out in their nests and feeding their young. And to look out for lots of different endemic life that's going to be similar, such as the baby Seikret that hangs around the camp. This was another fan favorite after a blurred image someone caught, and now they're nice enough to give us a nice, higher quality still to look at. Very cute. Lastly, they tell us that this is simply not everything they have to show or tell us. There's a lot more information coming down the line, so do keep an eye out, and that comes as no surprise, though, you know, myself and Josh talked about it recently. We do hope they keep a good amount secret to find at launch, not reveal everything, but we'll see. But that was the Wilds part of the panel. Certainly some new details to look at and think about, though none of it was like massive, just subtle and fun stuff. I welcome a little casual thing like that though, especially when we know more is coming. On that note though, I want to let you guys know to be on the lookout for some podcast style talks with other creators here on the channel. We've recorded a couple already with other creators who've played the game and were at Gamescom, and we've also had a great talk with the RX team for their channel to look out in the coming days. So yes, it's just a good time for Monster Hunter right now. It feels great to see how the community is kind of back together in this way. I'll be back with more Wilds coverage soon, I'm sure though, but until then, I've been Hollow, you've been you, and thanks for watching.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.